There are some battles women fight in complete silence, the kind nobody else can see, the kind hidden behind fake smiles, heavy makeup, oversized clothing, constant exhaustion, and quiet tears late at night. Because from the outside, everything appears perfectly normal, but inside the body, hormones are already spiraling out of control. Imagine waking up one day and realizing your body no longer feels familiar. Your clothes fit differently. Your energy disappears before noon. Your emotions feel heavier than they should. Your confidence slowly erodes, like sand washing away from the shore. And no matter how hard you try, nothing seems to work anymore. So you blame yourself. You tell yourself maybe you are lazy. Maybe you are not disciplined enough. Maybe you are eating too much. Maybe your willpower simply isn't strong enough. Maybe you are just failing. But what if the problem was never laziness? What if your body has been sending warning signals for years and nobody taught you how to read them? Think about Sarah. She is 27 years old. She works hard. She eats carefully. She exercises regularly. But for years, her body kept changing in ways she could not explain. The weight gain that came from nowhere, the exhaustion that never fully disappeared, no matter how much she slept. The mood swings that confused even her closest friends. The acne that refused to leave even as an adult. The anxiety that sat quietly behind everything she did. The cravings she could never seem to control. The irregular periods she was repeatedly told was stress-related. She blamed stress, she blamed aging, she blamed her diet, she blamed herself until one appointment changed everything. Her doctor sat across from her, looked at the results, and said three words Sarah had never heard before: Polycystic Ovary Syndrome, PCOS, a hormonal condition affecting an estimated 1 in 10 women worldwide, a condition that hides behind silent symptoms women are constantly taught to ignore, dismiss, and push through, a condition that goes undiagnosed in millions of women for years, sometimes even decades. And the most frightening part, many of these women are sitting right now wondering why their bodies feel so unfamiliar, why nothing they try ever seems to work, why they feel so exhausted all the time, why their bodies keep changing without explanation. Tonight, we are going to uncover the 10 silent signs your body may be trying desperately to warn you about. Because sometimes the symptoms we dismiss as normal are actually quiet cries for help. One of the very first signs PCOS announces its presence is through the menstrual cycle, and at first it feels minor. A skipped month here, a period that arrives 2 weeks late, a cycle that lasts 3 days instead of 7, or one that stretches painfully for 2 weeks. Most women dismiss these early changes. They tell themselves it's the stress from work, or a change in diet, or traveling, or simply bad luck. But here is what is actually happening beneath the surface. In a healthy hormonal cycle, the brain sends precise signals to the ovaries through hormones called FSH and LH. These hormones coordinate ovulation, the monthly release of a mature egg. But in women with PCOS, these hormonal signals become disrupted. The ovaries may partially develop multiple follicles, small fluid-filled sacs that each contain an egg, but instead of one follicle maturing and releasing, they stall. They simply stop developing, leaving the ovaries dotted with small cysts, which is actually where the name Polycystic Ovary Syndrome comes from. When ovulation does not occur consistently, the hormonal cascade that normally triggers a period becomes erratic. Periods become unpredictable. Some months arrive early, some arrive weeks late. Some months, they don't arrive at all. Imagine being a young woman, 17, 19, 22, watching your friends casually track their cycles on their phones, while yours feels completely unpredictable. Every month becomes a guessing game. You begin checking the calendar constantly. You carry supplies everywhere because you never know when it might arrive. And deep down, a quiet fear starts growing. You start wondering, is this normal? Is something wrong with me? Should I be worried? And too often, the answer from doctors and family and friends is simply, don't stress, it's probably nothing, it'll regulate itself. But irregular cycles are rarely just nothing. They are often one of the body's earliest and loudest hormonal warning signals. And when hormones begin falling out of balance in one area, the effects rarely stay contained. They spread, they deepen. They quietly begin reshaping other systems within the body, which brings us to one of the most frustrating signs of all. If there is one symptom that emotionally breaks women with PCOS more than almost any other, it is the weight. Because this is not ordinary weight gain, this is weight that arrives quietly and stubbornly refuses to leave. Weight that builds, especially around the stomach, around the abdomen, the waist, the midsection. Weight that appears even when women are doing everything right. And perhaps the cruelest part, it often intensifies when women try hardest to lose it. They cut calories, they eliminate sugar, they follow strict diets, they push themselves through exhausting workouts. They stay disciplined for weeks, sometimes months, and the scale barely moves. Or worse, the scale moves in the wrong direction. To understand why this happens, we need to talk about something most doctors rarely explain clearly: insulin resistance. Insulin is a hormone produced by the pancreas. Its primary job is to act as a key, unlocking the body's cells so they can absorb glucose, which is the sugar that fuels every function in the human body. In a body with normal insulin function, this process works beautifully. You eat, blood sugar rises, insulin releases, cells absorb the glucose, blood sugar normalizes. But in many women with PCOS, studies suggest between 50 and 70%, the cells stop responding properly to insulin. The lock stops fitting the key. The pancreas compensates by producing more and more insulin, and this excess insulin does something critical. It signals the body to store fat, particularly around the abdomen. It stimulates the ovaries to produce more androgens, male-type hormones that further disrupt the hormonal balance, and it creates powerful, relentless cravings for sugar and carbohydrates. The result is a cycle that feels impossible to escape. Cravings intensify, more food is consumed, more insulin is released, more fat is stored. Energy crashes, exhaustion grows, willpower weakens, and the cycle continues. Now imagine living inside that cycle without knowing it exists. Imagine waking up every single morning determined to change, preparing healthy meals the night before, dragging yourself to the gym even when exhaustion pulls you back toward the bed. Saying no to every birthday cake, every family dinner, every moment of normal social eating, giving up so much, sacrificing so much, and then standing on the scale after weeks of discipline and watching the number go up. That moment breaks something emotionally, not just motivation, something deeper: self-worth, self-trust, the belief that your own body is on your side. Many women with undiagnosed PCOS stop recognizing themselves in the mirror, not just physically, but emotionally. They begin wondering who they have become. They begin grieving the version of themselves they used to know. But here is the truth that changes everything. These women were never failing. They were fighting a battle they didn't know they were fighting, against a biological system working against them at the hormonal level. And awareness, real awareness of what is actually happening inside the body, changes everything. In a body affected by PCOS, androgen hormones, the hormones most commonly associated with male biology, often rise significantly above normal female levels. And one of the most visible consequences of this hormonal shift is unwanted hair growth on the chin, along the upper lip, on the chest, down the stomach, along the inner thighs. This condition is called hirsutism, and it affects an estimated 70% of women with PCOS. But the numbers don't capture what it actually feels like to live with this symptom every single day. Some women wake up 30 minutes earlier every morning just to manage it before work, tweezing, shaving, waxing, applying makeup layer by layer to conceal what remains. They become experts at strategic lighting. They learn which angles make them feel safe in photographs. They become anxious in bright restaurants on sunny days, in close conversations where someone might look too carefully at their face. Some avoid intimacy, some cancel plans to avoid situations where they might be seen up close without preparation. Some stop looking in mirrors because what they see no longer feels like themselves. And the painful irony, while hair grows in places many women desperately wish it wouldn't, it quietly begins disappearing from exactly where most women want it most. Which leads us directly to the next sign. Acne is something most people assume belongs to adolescence, a temporary phase of youth that fades naturally as the body matures. But for many women with PCOS, acne never truly leaves. It reappears month after month, deep, painful breakouts concentrated along the jawline, chin, and neck, areas specifically connected to hormonal fluctuation. Breakouts that arrive without warning, that leave behind scars even after they fade, that no skincare routine, however expensive or disciplined, seems able to prevent. The reason is again found in elevated androgens. These hormones stimulate the skin's sebaceous glands to produce excess oil. Pores become clogged. Bacteria multiply. Inflammation follows. The result is acne that is not just cosmetic but deeply hormonal and impossible to treat effectively without addressing its root cause. But society rarely frames adult acne with compassion. Instead, women with persistent breakouts are often asked what they are eating, whether they are washing their faces properly, whether they are stressed. The implication is always the same, that the acne is somehow their fault, that if they simply tried harder, ate cleaner, managed stress better, that their skin would reflect that effort. But acne driven by PCOS cannot be washed away. It cannot be dieted away because it is not a hygiene issue. It is a hormonal one. And for many women, acne becomes one of the most quietly devastating symptoms PCOS produces because it is visible, it is social, it affects confidence in every room you walk into, in every photograph you appear in every mirror you pass. While PCOS may cause hair to grow where women don't want it, it simultaneously causes it to fall from exactly where they do. This is called androgenic alopecia, hormonal hair thinning, and in women with PCOS, it typically appears as gradual thinning across the crown of the scalp, a widening part. Clumps left behind in the shower drain, more hair visible on pillows in the morning, ponytails that feel noticeably thinner than they once did. For many women, this symptom carries a weight that goes far beyond its physical reality, because hair is deeply woven into identity, into femininity, into the image a woman has carried of herself for her entire life. When it begins disappearing quietly and unexpectedly, panic often follows. Women search symptoms obsessively late at night. They experiment with expensive shampoos and supplements. They change their parts to conceal thinning areas. They begin photographing their scalps to track what is happening. And through all of this, they carry the fear quietly, because this is not something most people talk about openly, because admitting hair loss feels somehow shameful, as though it reveals a vulnerability they weren't supposed to have. But hair loss driven by PCOS is not a reflection of health choices. It is a symptom of a hormonal condition, one that is treatable, one that does not have to keep progressing unaddressed. There is tiredness, and then there is the exhaustion that follows many women with PCOS. These are not the same thing. Normal tiredness is resolved with rest. You sleep, you recover, you feel better. But PCOS-related fatigue does not respond to sleep in the same way. You can sleep 8 hours and wake up feeling as though you haven't rested at all. You can spend an entire weekend barely moving and still feel completely depleted by Sunday evening. And this exhaustion is not imagined, it is biological. Insulin resistance forces the body to work significantly harder to regulate blood sugar. This drains energy continuously throughout the day, even when the body is at rest. Elevated cortisol, the stress hormone, which is commonly elevated in women with PCOS, further depletes energy reserves. Disrupted sleep patterns, which affect many women with PCOS due to its connection to sleep apnea and hormonal fluctuations, prevent the deep restorative sleep that the body needs to function properly. And inflammatory processes in the body, which research increasingly links to PCOS, create a constant low-grade biological stress that consumes energy without any visible output. The result is a woman who appears outwardly functional, who shows up for work, who manages responsibilities, who smiles and responds and participates, but who is quietly running on empty every single hour of every single day, who cancels plans not because she wants to, but because she genuinely has nothing left to give, who begins feeling guilty for what she cannot do, who starts believing she is lazy or weak or simply not trying hard enough. But she is not weak. She is exhausted by a system operating far outside its normal parameters, and nobody has told her why. Dark, velvety patches of skin may appear in unexpected places on the body, around the back of the neck, in the creases of the underarms, along the groin area, occasionally in the folds behind the knees or elbows. This condition is called acanthosis nigricans, and it is a direct visible sign of insulin resistance. When insulin levels remain chronically elevated, they stimulate the skin cells in certain areas of the body to overproduce pigment. The result is patches of skin that appear darker, thicker, and slightly velvety to the touch. And most never realize that no amount of scrubbing will remove a change that is happening beneath the surface of the skin. Many women scrub these areas vigorously, sometimes daily, believing the darkness is the result of inadequate cleaning. They feel embarrassed wearing clothing that might expose these patches. Some avoid certain colors or fabrics for years because of it. Because acanthosis nigricans is not a hygiene issue, it is the skin's visible response to something happening much deeper inside the body. And then there is the emotional weight of living with the visible symptoms themselves. The weight gain that doesn't respond to effort, the hair changes, the acne, the exhaustion, the fertility uncertainty. These are not small things, they are daily, relentless reminders that something feels wrong, and carrying that knowledge, often in silence, often without answers, creates its own profound emotional burden. Imagine feeling overwhelmed by emotions that seem to arrive from nowhere, crying unexpectedly at something small, becoming irritated in situations that previously wouldn't have bothered you, feeling anxious before social situations you used to enjoy, feeling a persistent low-grade sadness you cannot trace back to any single cause, and then going to the people around you, your partner, your family, your friends, and hearing, "You seem fine. You're probably just stressed." Everyone feels that way sometimes. So you learn to smile through it. You master the performance of being okay. You show up fully functional on the outside, and you break down quietly the moment you are finally alone. Because PCOS so significantly disrupts ovulation, it becomes one of the leading causes of female infertility worldwide. For some women, this is how PCOS is first discovered, not through a proactive health screening, not through a curious doctor connecting the dots, but through months, sometimes years, of trying to conceive without success. And few experiences in life carry the particular grief of infertility. Every month holds its own quiet arc, hope carefully constructed over 2 weeks. A pregnancy test held with trembling hands, and then the same quiet devastation again. Pregnancy announcements from friends become emotionally complicated. Baby showers require preparation, emotional armor put on before you walk through the door. Simple questions from well-meaning relatives become unexpectedly painful. And through all of this, many women carry it silently because infertility carries its own stigma, because grief that doesn't have an obvious, visible cause is often dismissed, because they haven't been given words for what they are experiencing. But it is important to know this. PCOS is not a sentence of infertility. Many women with PCOS go on to conceive, sometimes with minimal intervention, sometimes with medical support, sometimes naturally after addressing the hormonal imbalances that were making ovulation inconsistent. But none of that is possible without first knowing what you are dealing with, and that begins with awareness. If you have ever felt a craving so powerful it felt less like a desire and more like a compulsion, if you have ever found yourself standing in a kitchen at midnight, reaching for sugar or bread or anything that would make the feeling stop, if you have ever felt genuine shame after eating something you promised yourself you wouldn't, you may not have been experiencing a lack of discipline. You may have been experiencing insulin resistance speaking directly through your biology. When blood sugar crashes, as it frequently does in women with insulin resistance, the brain triggers powerful hunger signals, specifically hunger for glucose, for sugar, for fast carbohydrates that will raise blood sugar quickly. These are not preference cravings, they are survival signals. The brain responding to what it perceives as a genuine energy crisis. And no amount of motivation or willpower overrides a genuine biological survival signal indefinitely, which is why the standard advice given to women with undiagnosed PCOS, eat less, try harder, have more discipline, so often fails, because it addresses the surface behavior, while completely ignoring the biological mechanism producing it. And instead of treating these women with compassion and curiosity, society has often responded with judgment, with the implication that if they simply wanted it badly enough, they would find a way. But they were already trying, desperately, against biology they didn't yet understand. PCOS is rarely loud. It doesn't announce itself clearly. It doesn't arrive with a diagnosis attached. It builds quietly, sign by sign, symptom by symptom. Until one day, a woman looks at her life and realizes she has been carrying something enormous for years, without ever knowing what it was. The weight she couldn't lose was not a moral failing. The exhaustion that never lifted was not laziness. The emotions that overwhelmed her were not weakness. The hair loss, the acne, the irregular cycles, the cravings, the anxiety, none of it was her fault. All of it was her body trying in the only way it knew how to communicate that something needed attention. PCOS is one of the most common hormonal conditions affecting women worldwide. It is also one of the most commonly misunderstood, one of the most frequently dismissed, and one of the most unnecessarily silent, because women with PCOS deserve to be heard. They deserve to be believed. They deserve access to accurate information that helps them understand what is happening inside their own bodies. And they deserve to know that they are not alone. Because right now, while you're watching this video, millions of women around the world are sitting with the same questions, the same fears, the same unexplained symptoms, the same quiet sense that something is not right. And perhaps this video reaches one of them. Perhaps these words find someone who has been dismissing her symptoms for months or years. Perhaps this is the moment that changes the direction of her story. If you recognize yourself anywhere in this video, if even one of these signs resonated with something you have been quietly experiencing, please do not dismiss it. Talk to a doctor, ask specifically about PCOS, ask about hormone testing, ask about insulin resistance, ask about ultrasound imaging of the ovaries. Because PCOS is diagnosable, and while it cannot be cured, it can absolutely be managed. With the right support, the right information, and the right medical guidance, many women with PCOS go on to live full, healthy, energized lives. Many regulate their cycles, many manage their weight, many conceive naturally. Many find that addressing the hormonal root cause transforms every other symptom that followed. The path forward begins with one thing: knowing. And now you know a little more than you did before this video began. If this video helped you, if it gave you language for something you have been living with silently, please share it. Send it to a woman you love, to a sister, a friend, a daughter, a colleague, because awareness is the beginning of everything. Like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe if you want to continue learning about the health topics that matter most to women, the ones that don't always get the attention they deserve. And leave a comment below. Tell us, did any of these signs surprise you? Have you or someone you love been affected by PCOS? We read every comment, and this community is a safe space for every story. Until next time, take care of yourself, and please remember, you are not alone.